Welcome to Catholic Men of America. We are a professional business fraternity for Catholic men. We provide networking opportunities, help men find employment, assist business owners with finding employees, and help entrepreneurs buy and sell their businesses, find capital partners, and develop peer relationships. Membership is free. Join us at CatholicMenOfAmerica.com. If you're on the internet, you know how difficult it can be to find a safe, secure, and reliable web hosting partner. It's even harder to find a partner you can trust to defend you when cancel culture turns its sights on you, your organization, your employees, and your clients. Catholic Men of America is proud to announce we've partnered with the world's leading Catholic web hosting and technology company at RaiseTheArk.com. They've built their organization around protecting and defending your web assets. We trust them with our own website. If you're looking for a permanent solution to your web hosting needs, visit RaiseTheArk.com. Hi, this is Jeff Kassman, one of the co-founders of Catholic Men of America. On this webinar, CMA member Joe Barone will explain how you can leave the corporate rat race and develop a full-time income as a consultant by leveraging your experience and expertise. He explains how to make the transition, how to develop your product or service offering, what your business plan should cover, how to position yourself with your prospects, branding principles, and more. There has never been a better time to become an entrepreneur. I hope you enjoy today's webinar.
So, you want to hang out the consultant shingle, or what you need to consider before you start from a new consultant. This is Joseph Barone with A Fool for Learning, and I'm a new consultant. I've been in business for about 2 years. And what we're going to share with you are what does it take to become a new consultant? What does it take to hang out that consultant shingle? And in order to do that, we're going to cover 4 basic topics today. The first we're going to talk about is, what is the pathway to consulting? Second, we're going to talk about the Boy Scout motto. Third, there's more than one way to earn. And finally, the most important factor. So, before we get into it, let me tell you about who is Joseph Barone, or as he's commonly known in the business circles, a fool for learning. Joseph Barone was born and raised in New York City. And that's where I got my start in the training field. And starting on the right-hand side of this photo is a photo of me when I worked for the New York City Department of Records. And that's where I got my start in the training business. I worked there for about 4 years. And then I was seen at a conference giving a talk on training and what we did in New York City government by someone from the World Bank. And they invited me to come down. I interviewed and got a job with the World Bank. And so I'd been with the World Bank for almost 28 years before I accepted, and they came to me, to be honest, with a buyout. It was quite generous. And I decided after 28 years, it was time to move on. And so the second photo that you see is me as a very young consultant in 1995, I believe it is, in Bangladesh. I was headed up to the Jamuna Bridge project, a bridge between Bangladesh and India. I've also been a scout leader. Oh, and as part of the World Bank, just to let you know, for 17 years of the 28 years that I was with the bank, I ran their IT learning team. I also ran ran a small part of their help desk for 7 years. I've also been a Boy Scout leader for quite a number of years, over 35 years to be exact. And I'm part of the National Catholic Committee on Scouting, the training committee, as well as an assistant scoutmaster with Troop 466, located in Silver Spring, Maryland, at St. John the Evangelist Church. And the last photo is one of the last trips I took to India, where I did a 1-week stint at a very rural village in India, and I taught at a school. And the school was run by the family of one of my IT colleagues at the bank. And I taught there for a week, and actually we continued on for about a year until COVID hit. We continued on teaching conversational English to the students, where I would teach English to them, and we'd try to have a conversation to give them the opportunity to practice. If you want to learn more about me, at least from a professional standpoint, you can come to my website at A Fool for Learning. And you'll also notice that I do have a podcast channel called Foolish Thoughts, where I opine twice a week on topics such as networking, general business, training, and learning. And by the time you watch this particular video, I will have at least 170 episodes out there. On a personal note, I've been married to over 25 years to my wife, Anna. I have a daughter, Alessandra, who was married last year, October of 2020, and here's her husband, Tom. And I also have a son, Christopher, who is a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army. So let's take a look at the pathway to consultant. And this is kind of how do most people get into the consulting business? And I'm going to share with you the common ways, that the three most common ways, and then a fourth way, which is the way I did it, but the most common ways to get into consulting. And one of the ways that I've commonly seen people get into consulting is many times they work for an organization, and suddenly that organization decides to downsize for whatever reason. It may be their department, it may be a whole division, it may be just select people. But for whatever the case is, they decide to downsize. And I've discovered this in the training business, that there have been a number of people who have been called back by their former employer, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, and they said, hey, John, hey, Mike, hey, Susie, we need you. We need your particular skill. Can you come back and help us? And they decided, hey, I'm going to go back and work for my old business, even though, yes, they may have gotten rid of me for whatever reason. I'm going to go back and work for them. And I'm also going to now start doing more consulting work on the side. And so a business begins to grow from their former employer. As crazy as it may sound, that does happen. The second way is that you decide to leave your company voluntarily, and you decide to start that consulting business. And you may take some of your clients with you. Now, in this case, maybe the whole company closes down, which has been the case for a number of people that I know. Their businesses closed down. They decided to continue on with their business. Let's say it's an accounting business or an accounting consultancy, and they go and take a number of clients with them. Make sure there's no sort of non-compete clause, that you can't take these people with you, go after them, etc. Make sure you do that. You don't want to get into all sorts of legal trouble. The final way, and the way that most people get into consulting, is they start some sort of side business. And there's a term they used a couple of years ago. I really don't like it, but I will use it here, called a side hustle, in which they start a side business. And they started small, one person here, one person there. But at some point, they have so much work coming in, they need to make a decision. Do I stay small, or do I go out and start on my own? And in many instances, people will go out on their own. I know, for example, and here's an example of an electrician, a young man who's an electrician who works for a company, but takes all sorts of smaller jobs from friends and family and people via word of mouth to do a lot of little jobs that the company probably doesn't want to take on. And he's saving that money to at some point go out and open his own business. So those are the three most common ways that I know of. A company gets rid of you, but calls you up and says, hey, come on back. We need your services. We're going to hire you as a 1099 employee. You leave your company closes down, and you take some people with you, or you start a business using on the side, and it becomes so big and so popular that you decide, I'm going to go out on my own. The final way, which is the way I went, and this I believe is probably the hardest way to do, is you strike out on your own. And when my organization came to me with a buyout, which I accepted, I had to make that decision. What did I want to do with my life at age 55? Did I want to go back to the corporate world? Do I want to go to a large company, a small company, or do I want to strike out on my own? And I thought about it for a couple of months and said, I want to strike out on my own. I've always wanted to do this. I see other people do it and being relatively successful. I'm going to give it a shot. And so I went and with no clients at all, no background, nothing, just gave it a shot and went out on my own. So the second thing you need to think about is when you decide I'm going to go out on my own, I'm going to do the consultant route, you need to do the Boy Scout motto, which is you need to be prepared. And you really need to be prepared if you're going to go out on the consulting route. You really need to think this through. You really need to prepare yourself. If you just say one day, I'm going to be a consultant, I'm going to go out there and do it, more than likely you're going to fail and you're going to wind up in huge debt. So a couple of things that you need to think about. And the first thing that you need to think about, and hopefully you've been doing this, if you've worked for another consultant, of course, you got another company, you got a side business going. But the first thing you need to think about is what product or service will I offer to the world? And is that a product or service that people or the world will want and need? So, for example, on this particular slide, you see I can create quick reference guides for people. Is this a service or a product that people want and need? Maybe, maybe not. There are lots of other people out there who do these sorts of things. Second thing is maybe running a training program, such as team building exercises using Legos. Is there a want and is there a need? So that's the first thing you really have to think of very clearly. What do I want to offer the world? What product or service? Once you've decided what product or service you wish to offer, the next thing you have to decide is compensation. And what I mean compensation, there are a number of things that I mean by that. The most common thing when we talk about compensation is money, is salary. How much am I going to charge for my work per hour or per job or whatever the case might be? So the first thing is, how much do I want? How much do I need? The second thing you also have to think about in compensation is you also have to think about health insurance. So when you think about how much money you're going to earn, it's not just simply how much you're going to earn. You have to think about how much is my health insurance going to cost? Now, for many people, or a number of consultants out there, they may have a spouse that works for an organization that offers health insurance. And so many times those people will piggyback on their spouse's health insurance. So yes, there's an extra cost. You have to figure that in, but it's much cheaper than if you had to go out solo and buy it on the open market. You also need to think about what happens if I want to go on vacation. Remember, when figuring out your compensation, how much you're going to earn, you have to remember, if I go on vacation, I'm not earning for that 1 or 2 weeks. So whatever compensation, whatever money I want per hour, per job, per day, whatever the case might be, I have to include such things as a vacation. There are other things you need to consider. You need to consider the cost of maybe a website, the cost of a computer, the cost of software, the cost of a printer, whatever the other services that you need, business cards, whatever those other things that you need, you have to figure all of this into your compensation. How much are you going to get paid per hour, per job, per day, whatever the case might be. And that can be tricky. You can go out there and see what others are charging based on similar skills and similar experience, or you can decide, how much do I need to live? How many hours do I wish to work per week? And then figure out that calculation. How much do I want to earn? How much do I need to live? How many hours I want to work? And then calculate that in order to figure out how much I need per hour.
Hackers are on the prowl 24/7, using bots to probe your website for vulnerabilities. It's not even necessary any longer to hack a password. They have malicious code they can insert into your website that will replicate itself and infect your code and even your web visitors' browsers. Even small businesses and individuals need to maintain enterprise-level security to ensure your data and your web visitors are safe from malicious hackers. RaiseTheArk.com is a Catholic-owned web services and technology company devoted specifically to protecting your website and your data. Whether it's hackers you're worried about or cancel culture, they've got your back. Here at Catholic Men of America, we trust our site and our data to RaiseTheArk.com. Check them out today.
The other thing, as I mentioned, you need to think about is all these other things that you need to do. You need to think about such things as a website, such things as taxes. Do you want office space? All of these other things need to be considered when you're a consultant or when you want to go out to be a consultant, because there's no one there to do that for you like when you work for a company. When you work for a company, you've got a problem with your computer, you call up the help desk, call up the local ITs, they come, they fix it, you're done. Nothing to worry about. You want to put in for a day off? Not a problem. You put in, day off, you're getting paid for that. So those are some things that you need to consider for going into the consulting business. Now, actually, I want to go back here. I just want to talk about a couple of other things here. There are some other things that you really need to consider when going into the consulting business. One of the things you need to think about is you need to make sure that you have a business plan. A business plan, and you can find templates out on the web. There are hundreds of them. You can just pick the one you want. In fact, I believe in Word, there are a couple of business plan templates. But a business plan will help you really think through who your target audience is, how much should you earn, who's going to be your competition in your space, how long will it take, helping you think about how long do you want to do this to be successful? Like how many days do you want to say, I'm going to get business in the first year. My business plan is I'm going to work 150 days in my first year. I'm going to get 150 days worth of income. And do you help, that's your target to figure that out. Second thing that you need to really think about, and I sort of alluded this before, is that you really need to think about, you've got to be a jack of all trades. You're your IT person, unless you're willing to hire someone to manage your IT services, you're going to have to do it yourself. And if you're a solopreneur like myself, most IT companies, most small IT companies who help other companies with their ITs don't want to touch a person like me because we are too small. There are some out there that will do it, but most only want to touch companies that have 5, 10 employees at minimum. So that's something to think about when you want to do it. Taxes, who's going to do your taxes? Are you going to try to do it, or are you going to hire someone to do it? So these are a number of things that you need to think about very, very carefully before you go into the consulting business. Have your business plan, work on it, show it to others, play with it a little bit, think it through. And you've got to be the jack of all trades. Remember, no one to fix your IT, no one to buy you a paper for your printer or ink cartridges. All of those things need to be considered. Now, one of the key things you have to figure out or think about is how are you going to get the word out about your product or service? And there are many, many ways of doing it. And I think depending on the type of consultant you are, the type of business you want to start, in some businesses, it's much easier than others. So if you have a trade, I think it's much easier to go out and sell that particular service. Or if you have a product that people want and need, they may want it, but they may not need it. Remember that very carefully. Think of that very carefully. It may be easier for you to launch your business. However, there are a variety of things that you can do in order to get your business out there, get your name out there so that people will want to hire you. Of course, you can always go the route of buying what I like to call the Yiddish term tchotchkes, little things to give away. That's one way of getting the word out about you, but that can be an expensive way. I'm not sure personally. I think in some businesses, it's better, like if you got pens and that sort of stuff, you will see a marked return on what you get. But for other services or consultant types, this type of thing may not be the way to go. Another way to get your word out about your product or service is to give talks. So give talks to anyone who hear you talk about your particular product or service. It can be another professional association. It could be the Rotary Club. whoever it is, a school group, it doesn't matter, get out there and talk and let people know about your product or service. Join a networking group, and there are tons of networking groups out there. The largest is probably called BNI, Business Network International, where you join a group, and the idea is that the members of the group each help each other for business. Now, again, depending on what type of consultancy you want to do, BNIs may be a good thing. BNIs may be, or networking groups, I should say, to be more exact, and there are a number of different ones, may not be the right solution for you. You can try them. Many of the groups will allow you to come to one of their two of their meetings, see if it's a group that will work for you. And there are many different ones. There are some that meet online, some that meet in person, some that do both. Go around, check them out. And again, usually the first 1 or 2 meetings are free, but after that, if you want to be with that particular networking group, you're going to have to pay a fee. There are also chambers of commerce out there, and chambers of commerce can be very good, depending again on the area, on the chamber, what type of businesses are there. So that's something to think about. Do you want to be a member of a chamber of commerce? Again, there's a fee, but for that fee, you get some advertisement. You get to come to chamber events for free. They represent you as a business or among other businesses in front of local governments and state governments and those sorts of things. So something to think about. Again, you can look online. Sometimes they will allow you as a non-member to come in, but you pay a slightly higher event fee to join one of their events. You may go and do expos and conferences. Another way of getting your business out. Again, there's a fee attached to any of these, and you have to go and try and see which ones may work for you. If you're a wedding consultant, you want to get out there to these events, these expos, to let people know who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Again, you need to have a web presence, and you need to have an updated web presence. Your web presence can't be 15 years old. It's got to be updated. It can be very simple. It can have video, it can have music if you want, but it can be simple, but it's got to be updated. You got to clearly tell people what your business is and how can they reach you if they want to reach you, whether it be by phone or a form that they complete, which generates an email to you. There are other things that you can do to help you generate business, or at least make people aware of who you are. And for example, I do podcasting. As I said, by the time you listen to this presentation, I'll probably have about 170 episodes out there. Some people make money on it. I don't. I do it to put myself out there, to share my knowledge, to let people know that, hey, I'm a guy who has experience, who has expertise, and that you should come and use me, hire me for that expertise. It's also a great selling point. It's also a great way to introduce myself to others and say, I have a podcast channel. Oh, you do? And we kind of talk about it and things that we have on it and do on it to kind of help meet their needs and try to solve their problems. Again, you can go very fancy, or like myself, kind of be indie, kind of an independent one, just me, a microphone, doing some recording. And, don't sell yourself short when going to different groups. Use your alumni connections, whether it be college or high school or even elementary school. And again, speak to those groups, use them. You never know where a connection will be made in any of those groups. So go put yourself out there, becoming active. Even if you do 2 or 3 net alumni things a year, get yourself out there, let people know who you are. The other thing you want to do that you need to seriously think about is branding. What is your brand going to look like? Now, again, if you're doing, let's say, an electrician or a carpenter or a plumber, you may not need something fancy. But if you're doing a particular service like training or attorney or something like that, you may want to have a good logo. And you want a logo that can not only put on your website, but a logo that could be put on your social media, your Twitter account, your Instagram account, or whatever other type of account you may have. And along that line, you also need to have a good business card. A well-done, professional-looking business card can really help you, at least get you noticed. Doing a cheap business card, people go, that's really nice, and kind of put it on the side. So one of the key things I want to stress that you need to think about as a consultant is branding. And you could go to a local person to have a logo created for you, a business card created for you, or you can use one of these online services where you say, hey, I'm looking for this. A couple of consultants, online consultants will bid, graphic designers will bid. You'll choose the one you want, they'll do it, and everything is done virtual as opposed to being in person. So branding is an important thing for you, especially you have a service that most people are not aware of. And for me, this company name and the logo really help at least catch people's attention, and at least make them pause and think about it and say, hey, tell me a little bit more about yourself. The other thing you need, and here we get into the fourth area, is you need to think about some multiple revenue streams. Now, as a consultant, you are not going to be busy all the time. Now, some consultants are, absolutely. They have more work than they know what they need to do. But many times consultants will go into dips, periods of a month, month and a half, when there's not a lot of work. There's some work, but not a lot of work coming in. And we're not just simply talking about the summertime or maybe between Christmas and New Year's. We're talking even during busy times. And so you need to start thinking about what are some other ways that I can generate revenue when things are a little bit slow. It may be that you teach a class. So one of the things that I do to generate some additional revenue, which isn't a lot, but again, it's additional revenue, is I will teach a class on podcasting. What are the things that you need to consider before you start podcasting? So that's one way. Maybe you can write articles in which you get a small stipend. Maybe you'll write a book in which you can generate some income. Maybe you'll create an online class that can generate revenue. So you do a lot of work up front creating the class, but then as people take it, you earn some revenue from that. You need to think about some different ways to generate revenue because you're not going to be busy all of the time. Finally, and the very last thing I want to talk about is that the most important thing that you need to do when you decide I'm going to go out and be a consultant, and after all the things that you've considered, the being prepared and the revenue streams and the branding and all of that, you really need to make a commitment. You really need to go whole hog, as they say, on this. If you're not willing to commit to it, really, really give it that effort, that try. And I'm not talking about for 6 months. I'm not talking about for a year. Sometimes for at least a good 2 years, you got to commit. If you're not willing to commit, then it's not going to work. If you're doing it half-hearted, it's not going to work. So in conclusion, there are 4 things you need to do in order to go out and be a consultant, or if you really want to do a consultant. Number 1, you have to think about how do you get into it, of course. Sometimes it's on purpose, sometimes it's by accident. You need to be prepared. There are lots of things that you need to consider in order to do it. You also need to have that commitment, and you need to have that revenue stream, that multiple revenue streams in order for you to survive as a consultant. And finally, you need to make the commitment. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you. This is Joseph Barone with A Fool for Learning. And if you have any questions, or you want to reach out to me, feel free to give me a call or come to my website, fill out the form, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to chat with you a little bit about consulting or about the services that I offer. So once again, thank you very much.
You've been listening to Catholic Men of America member Joe Barone explain how to make the transition from traditional employment to self-employment as a consultant. Make sure you connect with Joe Barone at afoolforlearning.com. If you're like most website owners, you probably have your domain name registration and hosting with a company that hates you and hates the Catholic faith. Don't partner up with the enemy. Instead, put your web hosting business with Catholic-owned RaiseTheArk.com. Their unique mission is to protect and defend the websites and data of Catholic websites and Catholic business owners. We trust our website and data to RaiseTheArk.com. You should too. Visit RaiseTheArk.com. Thank you for watching this Catholic Men of America webinar. This is just a sample of the kind of content we provide for members. We want to help you find a better job, break into self-employment, buy a business, or grow your business. Membership is free. Join us at CatholicMenofAmerica.com.